we'll be looking at PlanetScale, going through a tutorial on how to set it up, and showing how to use it with Nextjs, hosting on Vercel, hosting on Netlify. PlanetScale says they're the most advanced MySQL platform. It's cloud native and like super scalable. So this will be very interesting if you've never used PlanetScale. Let's go ahead and do a quick review of some of these screens and commands that I will be running to get this all set up. Thanks for stopping by to check out this video. I'm going to be talking about PlanetScale and getting a Nextjs application deployed into it. And so I have several different tabs and browsers open here. I also have some command lines opened up to show the commands that I ran initially. And also I am showing here the versions of like Node that I have installed, npx version, the npm version, and also the scoop version. So you can see those in that command window. And the other set of browsers and tabs talk about some of the other technology and the open source projects and so forth that are all involved in making this video. But in the end, we will end up installing some tools here. We'll also deploy it to Vercel, which I have a version that I deployed here to Vercel. And here is a database set up on PlanetScale, and we'll be doing something just like this in this video from scratch. And also there is an integration you can use on Vercel. I'll include a link to this article if you want to read through it. It explains some of the details about that. And there's also a PowerShell terminal command that I ran called scoop, and that gets the software installed that we're going to need for this project. So that's basically a high level of what we're going to be doing in the video. Before we get into all the details of setting up and deploying it, I wanted to take a look at a couple things here on the PlanetScale homepage. What is PlanetScale exactly? A modern database platform. It is a MySQL compatible serverless database that brings you scale, performance, and reliability without sacrificing developer experience. You get the power of horizontal sharding, non-blocking schema changes, and many more powerful database features without the pain of implementing them. It's serverless. So let's look at a few other things here. If we keep scrolling right here, they have a PlanetScale CLI, which I will use in the video to run some commands to set things up in the database. This is also interesting. They have a intelligent monitoring, never miss a bad query, fully integrated and real-time insights into your database performance. No third-party application monitoring platform required. You can view 100% of your active queries. This is in beta anomaly detection. Detect when your queries run slower than expected. And right here, PlanetScale Battle Hardened Foundation, the full force of open source technology. Built at Google to scale YouTube.com to billions of users, Vitess is the world's most scalable open source database. Powering the largest sites on Earth, Vitess is the cloud native MySQL technology that reaches planet scale. Here we have enterprise grade security and privacy practices that your data deserves. SOC 2 Type 2 reporting. They continuously monitor and report primarily using system and organization controls SOC 2 Type 2. Business associate agreements. PlanetScale can enter into BAA agreements with customers deployed on single tenant environments. They also have an announcement there about HIPAA. Encryption in transit and at rest. PlanetScale databases and their client communications are AES encrypted throughout the PlanetScale platform. I think that's really important to take a look at. I always like looking at their security features. There's also a website here, vitess.io. They go into more detail about the platform and the cloud native database. I'll include a link to this. We can see people who are using it, of course, YouTube, amongst many other companies. Also, Vitess is a Cloud Native Computing Foundation graduated project. And there's a good documentation set here about what is Vitess. It's a database for deploying, scaling, and managing large clusters of open source database instances. It currently supports MySQL. It's architected to run as effectively in a public or private cloud architecture as it does on dedicated hardware. And there's a lot more information here about it. I'm going to pull up the pricing page just to take a very quick look at it before we start into the rest of the tutorial on setting everything up and getting it deployed to Netlify and Vercel. So here we can see on the hobby plan it is $0. It's free forever for hobby use. 5 gigabytes of storage included, 1 billion row reads per month, 10 million row writes per month, 1 production branch, and 1 development branch. So that's really awesome. And there's a lot of other options and benefits. You can compare the plans, and I'll include a link to that. So here's the GitHub repo that I'm going to be following along with in the video. It's the Nextjs starter project from PlanetScale. Let's scroll down here and start looking at the instructions. This is a Nextjs project that uses Prisma to connect to a PlanetScale database and Tailwind CSS for styling. What are the prerequisites? We need Node.js, PlanetScale CLI, and then we will authenticate with the CLI using this command they show here, pscale auth login. So if you don't have Node.js, you need to go to that website and get it installed, and also the PlanetScale CLI. And that's why I pulled up this other page here. So here is the GitHub repo for the PlanetScale CLI. The pscale command line tool brings branches, deploy requests, and other PlanetScale concepts right to your fingertips in your command line, and they show some examples there. So how do we get it installed? This is all running in a Windows sandbox. So I will be following along with any specific Windows instructions. If you're using Mac or Linux, there are some other instructions there for you. So here is the Windows instructions. It tells us here pscale is available via Scoop and as a downloadable binary from the releases page. And so if we look at Scoop, that's why I pulled up this page here. It's a command line installer for Windows. And there's 2 commands you have to run. They're right here. And those I ran in my command or PowerShell prompt. And so I'll show this screen for a minute so you can see. The first command is up here at the top, which is what they said we need to do. And the second command that I ran is here. And you can see that it was successful. And then I typed in scoop help, and we can see the usage and the information that it produced. And it does tell us here that Scoop was installed successfully. These are the commands that I ran in my PowerShell. And then there are other options that they show here manually, container image and so forth, but I just followed the Windows commands here. Now I did not do the Scoop update pscale. I may try that in another video. And it did tell me error message. It said git is required for buckets. Run scoop install git and try again. So when I tried to run the one command there in the instructions, I got an error. So I went ahead and did the scoop install git right there, and it installed some other software bits. And then we can see down here that it was installed successfully. And then I ran this other command here as they explained, and it says the pscale bucket was added successfully. And then scoop install pscale MySQL. So then a bunch of other things happen there, and it tells us it was installed successfully. It goes on further, and then I run pscale here, and it tells me basically we know it's installed because it says pscale is a CLI library for communicating with PlanetScale's API, and then they give some commands that you can run. So now we know it was all installed according to their directions. And we can go back to the main GitHub page, and then we can run the pscale auth login. At the very bottom on my screen here, you can see I did run the pscale auth login, and you just have to follow along with what it asks you to do basically, and then once you're done, you will be logged into the pscale from your command line, and you can proceed further. Let's go back to our instructions here and pick up where we left off. Pscale database create, and then we'll give it a name. So let's go ahead and run that, and I will create another database. Let me get that pulled up here. I decided to run it right here in my command prompt. So let's go ahead and type this: pscale database create scots _ pln scale 2 _ db, and hit enter. Alright, since I already have a database, I'm going to have to go and delete that and then come back to this because I'm on the free plan. Here is the database that I had created, so let's go ahead and get this. At the very bottom of the settings page, there is a delete database. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I have the name typed in there. Let's go ahead and click on delete database. And now it's back to the welcome to PlanetScale. Let's create your first database. Well, we're going to do everything in the command line, although you can do it from here also in the dashboard page. Let's go back to our instructions and pick up where we left off. We'll go ahead and run this command again to create the database. So we'll just go here and hit enter. And now it tells us it did it successfully. So let's go to the web page and take a look. And here I'll hit refresh on the browser. It took it a second, but here it is. So I'll click into that, and we can see that it's generating. So this does take a little bit of time, not too long, but we'll come back in just a moment. Here's what it looks like once it's created it. We can see there's one branch. There's no tables yet. We'll be creating those momentarily, and how many row writes there are or any anomalies. And it has the name scots _ pln for planet scale 2 _ db. So back in the GitHub instructions, it says a branch main was automatically created when I created my database, so I can use that for the branch name in the steps below. Then we want to set up the starter Nextjs app, so we're going to clone the repository. So I'll go ahead and copy that, and I'll go back to my command line, and I will paste it in there just like that and hit enter, and we'll let that get finished. Alright, that's done. Now let's go ahead and open up that code in VScode. Now we're in VScode, and let's see what our next instruction is. Of course, we need to do the npm install, so let's go ahead and let that run. That's finished, so now we have to make a copy of the environment file, and we're going to call it .env. Here is the file. Let's go ahead and copy it, paste it, and then I will rename it to just .env. Okay, so what is in this file? This contains a database URL, which we're going to need to connect to the database and run the database commands, and we'll also need that when we're setting up the Vercel deployment and the Netlify deployment. But first we'll get it right here in our VS Code. The next step is to, using the PlanetScale CLI, we're going to create a new username and password for the branch of my database. So let's go ahead and run that. Here I'm copying the name of the database that I'll be using. And there's the command that I'll run, pscale password create Scott's PLN scale 2 underscore DB main for the name of the branch, and then I'm going to call it Scott's PW1. After you run that command, you will see something like this in your command line, which has your name, the username, the host URL, the role, and the plain text password. And so you'll need to use those properties to construct your connection string. That'll be for the database URL in the env file. So it ends up looking something like this here. Let's take a look. And I did update my database URL off screen, so let's go ahead and try the next step. What we need to do next is push the database schema to my PlanetScale database using Prisma. And that command is right here. Let's go ahead and copy that. And go back in the code for a moment. And that file is located right here, the schema.prisma. If you wanted to make changes to it when you initialize your database, you can change it here. This shows the new tables. One's called product, one's called category. There's also a relationship here that's set up between them. And when we run this command, it's going to read this information and feed it into the database, assuming I filled in my .env information correctly. Let's give it a try. When that finished running, it now tells me here my database is now in sync with my schema. It was done in 1.42 seconds, and it generated the Prisma client. Let's go into the database now and check it out. Here we can see now it says there is two tables right here, and we can see the category and the product. So now we know that the tables were created properly. Let's move on to seed the database with some sample information. The next command we need to run here is npm run seed. So let's go ahead and do that. And what happened there was this set of commands here that it ran against the database. So first it clears out some records, and then it creates our categories, products, and feeds that information into the database. So let's go take a look. I clicked on the console option here, and it says there's no branches you're able to connect to. The web console is disabled for production branches. So let's go into our settings, scroll down, and right here, allow web console access to production branches, and then I will scroll down and click save. It tells us they're successfully saved, so let's go back to the console. Here we can select the branch that we want. We just have one branch, and I'll click connect. Here I just typed in a basic SQL command, select star from category, case sensitive, and we can see we have some data there, so we know we're good so far. The next step is to go ahead and run the app, so npm run dev. Let's run that. So here it tells us go ahead and open up localhost port 3000. Let's go ahead and do that. So it's opening up my application. And here's the running application. We can see here it's localhost 3000. There's the images and the information from the tables in the SQL database. So that's great. I'm back on the main database page. Let's go ahead and click on branches here, and we can see my main branch. If I click on that, we can see here this is a production branch. Use caution, as schema changes may be directly applied to this branch without deploy requests. We can see our cluster utilization and the database regions information. Let's run the next command. The instructions mention running this command here, branch promote. I'm not going to run that. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed to deploy it on Vercel. And they have some automation done here, so let's click the button and let it do its work. Here it wants us to create a Git repository. I'm going to give it a new name. We'll call it Scott's PlanetScale Demo. Then I'll go ahead and click create, and I'm going to make it a private repository. And because I've already connected my accounts here, it didn't ask for any additional information. Now I need to put in the secret information that we looked at from the .env file. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll click on deploy. So I will copy from my env file all of this information and put it into that prompt. And let's go ahead and click on deploy now. It does encrypt the value as it says there, and now it has queued our deployment, and it will start building it, and we'll come back in a moment and take a look at when it finished. All right, it says it finished it. Congratulations. We can continue to our dashboard now. Let's go ahead and do that. And we can see it's called Scott's PlanetScale Demo. And we can visit it by clicking this visit button here. We can see that the status is ready. We can see the initial commit it created, and that it was done 1 minute ago. So we can click here or here. I'll click on this. And there is our application. We saw it running locally, and now it's running on Vercel. So now let's go ahead and look at deploying it on Netlify. I'm back in the GitHub page, and there's a button here to click on deploy to Netlify. They make it real easy. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll also have to supply that database URL again. we'll go ahead and connect to GitHub and take the next step. Here I gave it a name, Nextjs Starter 2, since I've already been through this before. And then we'll go ahead and click Save and Deploy. So here we can see the deploy is in progress, and it will show some things happening in the deployment log down here. We can see that it automatically detected Nextjs and will use the Nextjs runtime to build and deploy my site. So let's come back when it's finished. Alright, it's almost finished. We should see the deploying get activated here next. Okay, in progress. Let's let it get finished up here. There are the steps, the deployment log, initialize, build, deploy, cleanup, and post-processing have all been done. We can click on the preview button here. Also, there's a nice deployment file browser if you need to see certain things or download files to take a look at them for debugging purposes. You can do that by just clicking these download buttons here to download the files that it created. But let's go ahead and click on preview. And there is our URL and our application running on Netlify. There were all the steps that we had to follow to get our PlanetScale database set up, get data put in there, and get our application up and running on several different platforms. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward, and it's really nice to have more options available for these cloud platforms and these newer technologies. Although PlanetScale has been around for a while, but if you need capabilities like that, it's pretty easy to get set up. Well, anyway, I thank you for stopping by and checking out my video. If you like this channel, please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content.